What's up, everybody? It's Ken Jack here to give you a breakdown of The Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 2. I know this format looks a little weird, but I think we're going to, moving forward, have Clem and Robbie on these. We had a little bit of a scheduling mess up for this episode, but from moving forward, we're going to have them on. So just want to introduce you, prime you up for this new setup we got. But before we get into it, I just want to note, just a spoiler-free reaction for any of those that are tuning into this and maybe haven't watched it yet. This is going to be very spoiler-heavy, but before that, I want to say that I've been loving The Bad Batch. The first episode, full hour long. It's really, really cool. It's interesting. And really, it gives you a new and unique perspective on, just the Clone War era. And, I mean, that's what the animated series is always all about. So, getting a deeper dive at that and just the individuality of clones in general, always cool thing. And the animation looks great. They're at the peak of their game right now, especially we saw that after the last final season of Clone Wars. And now we're delving into the period of turmoil for the Empire, or the foundation of the Empire, which we don't get a ton of look at usually. So it's very cool stuff so far, but let's get straight into it. I'll give you a recap of episode 1 first before we get going. And look at this. I got a little slideshow prepared for you. So right when we start off, the first episode is Aftermath. The Bad Batch are in the middle of this operation when Order 66 is initiated, and none of the Bad Batch, or except Crosshair, let's say, really understand what's going on, right? So what happens is they're in the middle of a little bit of a do-to-do, right? They have to hunt down Kanan Jarrus. You see him right there? The little kid that they chased down in that first episode, that's him. You might recognize him if you watch Star Wars Rebels. Awesome character. Had one of the great final scenes I think I've seen for a character arc. He's very, very cool, except now in the Bad Batch, he's just a Padawan. And the Bad Batch are kind of tasked to go hunt him down. Hunter specifically is the one. He's the guy with the Rambo headband. They say, go get him. Go grab that guy. And Hunter basically chases him over to a cliff. And he's about to, not really shoot him, but I'd say, try and talk Kanan down. And Kanan jumps away and runs away. And Crosshair, another member of the Bad Batch, that's the sniper guy, confronts him and says, well, you definitely just let him go. And he's like, nope, he's dead. Let's go report him as dead. He just fell off the cliff, and I'm the one that killed him. So they go back, and they end up leaving and going back to Kamino, where Tarkin is there. And Tarkin is talking to the Kaminoans, and he's telling them, we don't need clones anymore. Yeah, look how he looks so fucking good in this. He's like, we don't need clones anymore. We can just use conscripts. Where you guys are charging us this mega premium for clones, we can just use conscripts. Who gives a shit? And so basically they try and tell them, look, we have enhanced clones. We have great guys. Look at the Bad Batch, for example. Although they don't call him that. It's Clone Force 99. And Tarkin is hearing reports about what happened because Crosshair reported it that Kanan actually escaped. And so he says, we need to test their loyalty. So they put them into this little, what I would call a Kobayashi Maru type scenario. And for those of you that have watched Star Trek, that's just it's sort of a test that's impossible, but and usually the case of a Kobayashi Maru, it's just a test your resolve of what you would do in that scenario. But in this case, I think Tarkin basically just wanted to kill them, but they ended up winning. They're they're smart guys. They're enhanced, and they find out a way to beat these almost super battle droid guys in the background. You see. So Tarkin says, we need to test your loyalty one more time. We got to go and send you to go and fight some insurgents in the Onderon sector. And this is where we're introduced to Omega. And you see Omega right there. Omega is supposed to be, at least on appearances, a medical ward working for Lama Su. And we later learn that she's actually an enhanced clone. And she's obviously going to be a big part of the show going forward, so pay attention to her. And then they get sent out to go wipe out the Separatists. Separatists turn out to be a bunch of refugees under the guidance you see right there of Saw Gerrera. He's worked his way into almost every Star Wars property there is. It's crazy at this point. He's in the video games. He's in, obviously Rogue One. He's in all of the animated series in some point or another. He's an awesome guy, well-deserved as well. So he's cool, and he kind of shatters the let's say the glass for the Bad Batch as to what's been going on with the Empire. They say, real convenient that the Jedi are gone now, right? That's a little bit weird. And they're all oh, that's what's happening. Everyone, all of the Bad Batch are kind of now woke on it, except for Crosshair. Crosshair is very much I still think we should be doing whatever it is that the Empire wants us to do. So they leave. They don't kill they're not even really separatists. They're just, I guess you would call them rebels. Yeah, they're early rebels. They don't kill them. They just go away and they head on back to Kamino. Their plan is to rescue Omega and bring her out, and then so that they can just essentially leave, because to them, she's an enhanced clone. She's one of them. So they return to Kamino. They get taken into custody, and Tarkin singles out Crosshair specifically and he finds out that that Crosshair, he has his inhibitor chip still partially functioning. So he decides like, hey, can you enhance it and make it go like full 100%? And the Kaminoans say yes. They enhance it. You see it right there. He's doing like almost the Total Recall type thing right now, going into full asshole mode, basically. Crosshair is always a dick in this. Like, he's a dick from start to finish in the show, even before he gets put into 100% inhibitor chip mode. So in the meantime, the rest of the Bad Batch, they all escape the jail they're in Camino, and then they get on a big-ass ship, and they fly away. So now we get to episode 2, which is the one I'm more excited, I think, to break down because it's the newer one. Something that we had in the first episode that we don't in this is a voiceover. And the weird, like almost the World War II newsreel voiceover that they had in the throughout the Clone Wars series was always like just a cool touch. They're like, oh, this time on the Empire is on their way to victory. The underground system, they have insurgents. And that was like a very cool throwback, I think, to those. And then in this episode, they don't have that voiceover. And that's because I'm assuming just because like all the Bad Batch is no longer part of the Empire. They're now like outlaws of that whole system that they were propagating, or whatever you want to call it. So this is where the clones are now on the run, and they take on the stowaway Omega, and they're on their way to Seleucami. And this is where they meet Cut. And this is a throwback to Clone Wars, and specifically episode 10 of season 2. And that's where they ran into Cut, who is a deserter clone who has his own family and lives as a farmer. And this is one of the first episodes where we really saw clones as like people who are like capable essentially of living a life outside of the Grand Army of the Republic and like doing their own thing and achieving individuality and being more than just killing machines for the Republic, or now in this case, the Empire. So I think it was an awesome idea bringing him back to this location, just because, again, this is going to be, I assume, mostly what the Bad Batch is about. It's about clones that aren't just conforming uniform guys. You know, they're doing their own thing. So that was awesome. And Cut tells them that Rex was just through the day earlier, and he was talking about the inhibitor chip. Omega tells them all what the inhibitor chip is because they weren't aware of it before. And then it cuts to them trying to get passage off-world. That's cut, by the way, before in the season 2 of Clone Wars, the animated series. So they go to the town, the Cut and Hunter, that is, and they say, we want to book passage off-world. It's not safe here anymore. The Empire is taking over. And when they go to try and get passage, they find out about chain codes. The Empire's instituted chain codes. It's the only way off-world, and you see some right there. Some identification codes. So chain code it's a type of identification marker that contain biographical information on an individual. It's attuned to the subject's specific biometrics. These markers cataloged as all my Google just shuts down. Attuned to a specific biometrics, these markers catalog certain features of a person and their history, and they were used by law enforcement of the New Republic to identify fugitives. They were mentioned in the first episode of Mandalorian, which I'll go back and I'll show you it right here. They were mentioned in the first episode. You see them here in the Robert Rodriguez episode. This is where Boba Fett shows to the Mando, like, hey, look, here's the chain code. I'm just letting you know I'm not fucking around with you. This is actually my armor. So it's a bigger thing that was introduced in Mando, which I think is kind of cool because I think it's the first time that, and I'm 100% positive, it's the first time that something from Mandalorian has worked its way into something outside of Mandalorian versus vice versa, let's say. So I think that was really cool. So then they... again, I still can't get over it. That was really cool. I love that chain code scene. Then you get Omega. She's getting in a little bit of trouble. She goes past the fence of Cut's house and gets attacked by Nexu. You see it there. They're still absolutely horrifying. The first time we had seen them was in Clone Wars. See it here. Disgusting creatures. Looks like a weird combination of like a spider and I guess a tiger and a lion and everything. It's just a porcupine, maybe. It's a horrifying creature. Hunter realizes essentially that Cut and Sue are better equipped for looking after a child because they have 2 kids of their own. So he asks them to bring Omega with them because the Bad Batch are just like a bunch of weirdos and they're just not equipped to take care of a child. That's not something they really know anything about whatsoever. So Tech and Echo, they realize that the only way that they're going to get the chain codes is to sneak into the clone base by having their ship impounded and pretending that it's deserted, essentially. The ship is abandoned. And that reminds me, you see them there, Tech and Echo, it reminds me of this. Does it remind anyone of the Millennium Falcon being brought into the Death Star and then pretending that it's actually, there's no one in it, there's no life signs, and then the stormtroopers go in, they knock them out, grab their armor and all that. I think that was a cool idea. Or maybe throwback. I don't know if it was intentional, but it was cool. So they sneak into the base. Tech steals the discs they need to make the chain codes, which are like basically you see them there like a fake passport, more or less. Mega manages to slip past the guards to deliver the discs, and the rest of the batch, the rest of the Bad Batch that's there, which I think is at that point is just Hunter, Cut, and then Sue as well. Hunter and Omega, or rather, Hunter comes back to the ship. Omega and ends up showing up there, and she's like, "I'm going with you. I'm not going with Cut and Sue. I don't want to live with them. I want to be with you guys. Like, you guys are like me." And so she leaves with them, and then we don't know where they're going after that. So there's a couple of Easter eggs in this episode. I really like the episode, though, before we get into that. I think we get now a little bit more of the engine running. Like, the hour-long episode is cool because it was, setting up the entire world of what this is going to be about, what the world is like now that everything's transitioning into the Empire. And anytime they want to show more about Order 66, I'm all about it. And I just enjoy now, like, we not only get more of an explanation about what chain codes are in this universe, because it's a little bit, I guess, not vague, but like it was a little bit vague in Mando. And we just see how the rest of the bureaucracy is now transitioning for the Empire, going into these outer world planets and everything like that. But moving into Easter eggs, I think the biggest Easter egg was obviously the Cut, just sort of like call back from again season 2 of Clone Wars, the animated series. And the second biggest was probably the inclusion of those chain codes that I mentioned earlier again. And it's again very cool that it's just probably the first thing from Mando to make it to the outside. The next Easter egg is that the armor is definitely way more Imperial now, like almost immediately. Like almost right off the bat, the armor went from clone armor to Imperial armor. Like they must have had boxes and boxes of this shit just stored and ready for Order 66 to go out until they got ordered, because everyone got their fresh new, way more Imperial armor almost immediately. You can see it, like it just has more of a Mando type visor on the original one versus the new one. So that's cool. The next big Easter egg is that we saw a bunch of alien species. You see here a Snivian. This is the guy that was like trying to get on the ship, and he's like, "Please, I gotta get on. I have it. I don't care if I don't have my chain code." First seen those in Star Wars: A New Hope. You also see in Alina. We've seen in many things, but this is one of those pod racers from the Phantom Menace. I think it's the first time it was introduced, and he is one of the guys that explodes in the big ass cave. He makes a weird sound like and just blows up. It was really gross. I hated that creature a lot. The guy in the hologram here, this is Vice Admiral Rampart. He is going to be the main bad going forward with the Bad Batch. He's going to be the guy tasked with hunting them down. Just a good thing to note for the future. And another couple Easter eggs here. This base in general looked very much like Solo-ish, I would say. You can see here, like this is where they had to hand in their chain codes in order to get forward and get to the port. You see the same thing in Corellia and Solo: A Star Wars Story. This is like the little bin, I guess, that they had to hand in things. They had the same thing in Solo: A Star Wars Story. And then their ship had a boot on it, which I hadn't seen anything Star Wars except for Solo: A Star Wars Story, when the Millennium Falcon was also booted up wherever they were, like on that fake Vegas planet, underworld planet. As far as questions go, I do have a couple. The first is that just who or what is Omega? I feel like they're prepping her up to be eventually a Force-sensitive clone. I don't know if it's a clone of Palpatine or what, but I think the general idea is that she's going to be Force-sensitive and just something to do with what Palpatine's vision, because they were obviously, I think, trying to keep her close to the vest and use her as a bargaining chip, the Kaminoans, that is. And now they still don't know what her power is. And like, if there's ever a mystery power, I feel like the go-to is just going to be that it's the Force. The next question is just where the Bad Batch are going. It's been teased that we'll potentially get Captain Rex at some point in this series. Maybe they want to find out where Rex went and go find him for this period. I don't know where that would be, but the thing is that there's a lot of episodes left, like 14 more episodes. So I don't really know where Rex would fit into there. So like, they basically have a lot more runway to work with, and I think we can probably guess that there's going to be a couple more small adventures on the way. They're going to do more like mercenary type work, I would imagine. I don't know for sure, but I feel like they're kind of prepping up Hunter and Omega to have this almost like Baby Yoda and Mando type relationship, where it's very wholesome. Like he's like, they're basically like the same kind, more or less, because they're obviously both enhanced clones, and I think that their sort of like father-daughter bond is it's just cool. And I'd love to see that just develop more moving forward. We still haven't been introduced to Fennec Shand. Again, 14 episodes left to do so. Very excited to see her show up again, and also voiced by Ming-Na Wen. She obviously played the live action one in Mando. I don't know where she's going to come into play. I don't know if she's going to be against them or maybe she's going to be with them. She's, I guess, 17 years younger at this point. And what their dynamic is going to be, I don't know. I don't know if they're all going to be working for the same mercenary crew, maybe, or something like that. Would be very cool. and I can't wait because also Fennec Shand was just a badass character. Next episode is Friday the 14th. I will have Robbie and Clem back for that one. We're going to try and get it out as early as possible, but this one I thought was very, very cool. I don't know where they're going to go from here, but I'm assuming that this next episode is going to be more table setting, because I feel like this one was also like almost an extension of the last episode. Like I know it was like they were going to try and figure out like how do you disappear after you were once a clone or once part of this Grand Republic army or just part of this machine in general. But I do think that it was just an extension of escaping the Empire. But this one, I think, is going to be more setting the table of what they're going to do now, because their purpose is still very much open-ended. Like, what are they going to do now that they're out of their army? They're obviously not going to, like, they're going to make 14 episodes of them becoming farmers. So they're going to have to become mercenaries. They're going to be, like, I don't know if they're going to be fighting the Empire, if they're going to be fighting other people, or just becoming rogues in general. They're almost like Ronin at this point. Super pumped for it. I'm really liking this show so far, though. Love the Clone Wars in general. Again, Dave Filoni behind this as well, executive producing. They got a lot of the old crew back, beyond just the voice cast, but producers, writers, a lot of the same crew is back in this, and you could tell it looks fantastic. I mean, the lighting in these episodes is amazing. I don't know how they did it. Super, super excited. Cannot wait. But if you have your own thoughts on it, drop them below. Let me know what you think about the Bad Batch, what questions you have, what theories you have. Let me know. I'm Ken Jack. See you next time.